Drive it. If you finish this course without touching one cone, the car is yours.
Laughter exploded across the luxury pavilion. Ese stood there in her faded orange coverall, grease still dark beneath her fingernails, while phones rose to record her humiliation. Victor Okonkwo covered his mouth, laughing. "Sir, this roadside mechanic cannot even afford one tire. She will scatter the whole car." Seyi threw the key down. It struck Ese's boot. "Pick it up," he said. "Let Lagos watch poverty trying to drive wealth." The crowd roared again. Ese bent slowly, picked up the key, and stared at the white sports car, worth more than everything she had earned in 11 years. Then she looked at Seyi. "Put your promise in writing, sir." The laughter weakened. "And clear that final barrier," she added. "Because when this car refuses to stop, I will not allow your arrogance to kill anybody." Silence. Pure silence. Before we continue, do not miss what happened next. Comment your city and local time below, and subscribe, because the moment Ese started that engine, the billionaire's laughter began to die. 38 minutes before that silver key landed at her feet, Ese Williams had not even planned to enter the main pavilion. She had come to Harbor Point Motor Pavilion because a refrigerated catering van had refused to start behind the building. The van belonged to the company supplying food for the launch of Adebayo Mobility's newest vehicle, the Apex R9. Without that van, trays of seafood, chicken skewers, and chilled drinks would remain trapped in the afternoon heat. The catering supervisor had called Ese at 1:16 p.m. "Madam Ese, abeg, help us. The van is dead. The guests are already coming." Ese had looked at the cracked screen of her phone, then at the single bowl of rice she had been sharing with Grace inside their small workshop in Ijora. "How much?" she asked. 35,000 if you can make it move before 2. Ese did not bargain. She picked up her tool case. Grace followed with the diagnostic meter she needed for her final year project at the Polytechnic. At 22, Grace was tall, serious, and quick with numbers. She wore a butter-yellow blouse beneath a faded denim jacket, and her hair was tied back with a plain black scarf. "Mummy, after this job, we still need to pay for the lab access," she reminded her as they boarded a bus heading towards Victoria Island. "I know," and the landlord came again. "I know that one too," he said Friday. Ese pressed her lips together. Friday was 3 days away. They owed 187,000 naira in rent. Grace still needed 63,000 for laboratory access, printing, and transport. Ese's workshop account held 21,412 naira. Life had reduced itself to arithmetic. Ese was good at arithmetic. She had learned long ago that poverty punished people who rounded numbers carelessly. By 1:49 p.m., mother and daughter were standing beside the dead catering van behind Harbor Point. Ese listened to the starter, tested the battery, checked the fuel pressure, and found a damaged earth cable beneath the engine bay. She cleaned the connection, replaced the split terminal with one from her kit, and tightened it properly. The engine started at 2:07 p.m. The catering supervisor nearly hugged her. "God bless you, Ma. You have saved my neck." "Do not carry me on your head," Ese replied. "The cable was already warning you. Next time, fix it before the vehicle dies." The woman laughed with relief and transferred 35,000 naira immediately. Ese wiped her hands on a rag. She should have left. That was the sensible thing. But Grace had seen the white Apex R9 through the open service gate. "Mummy, please. Let me just see the rear suspension layout. They said it uses an adaptive system. From this side?" "The technical display is inside." "We are not invited. I only want 5 minutes." Ese looked at her daughter's face. Grace had spent 3 months designing a low-cost inspection rig for commercial vehicle brakes. She had used scraps, borrowed equipment, and a second-hand laptop that shut down whenever the fan became hot. She did not ask for clothes. She did not ask for new phones. She asked for knowledge. Ese sighed. 5 minutes. They entered through the service corridor. The main pavilion looked like another country. Cold air flowed from hidden vents. The floor shone so brightly that Ese could see the worn soles of her boots reflected beneath her. Men in fitted suits stood beside women wearing perfume that arrived before their voices. A wall of screens displayed the Apex R9 racing through empty roads at sunset. Ese's orange coverall became a stain in the room. People noticed. A security officer stepped in front of them. "Madam, the staff entrance is behind." "We came from behind," Ese said. "My daughter wants to see the technical display." The officer looked at Grace, then returned his eyes to Ese's stained sleeves. "This area is for invited guests." Grace opened her mouth, but Ese touched her wrist. "Let us go." At that moment, applause rose from the center of the hall. Seyi Adebayo had entered. He was 39 years old and carried himself like a man who had never waited outside anybody's office. His cobalt blue suit caught the white light. His shirt was clean, open at the collar, and his silver watch flashed as he raised one hand to greet the crowd. A camera moved backwards in front of him. "Today," Seyi announced, "we are not merely launching a vehicle. We are proving that Nigerian engineering, Nigerian ambition, and Nigerian excellence can stand anywhere in the world." The audience clapped again. Grace stood on her toes. "That is the R9, she whispered. The car sat on a rotating platform. White pearl paint, low body, dark glass. Red-brown leather visible through the open driver's door. Ese did not care about its beauty. Her eyes went to the wheels. The vehicle had just returned from a slow demonstration outside. A junior technician crouched beside the right rear wheel, pretending to polish the rim. He had a diagnostic tablet hidden against his knee. On the screen, a warning icon flashed and disappeared. Ese stopped walking. The technician reached behind the wheel. He pushed a cable upward, then glanced over his shoulder. Ese knew that movement. Not the exact car, the movement. A worker hiding a fault instead of repairing it. She took one step closer. The security officer blocked her again. "Madam, I said this place is restricted. Tell that technician not to clear the warning." "What? The pressure warning. Tell him to read the fault history first." The officer stared at her. "You are a guest now?" "No, then move." Grace tugged at Ese's sleeve. "Mummy, what did you see?" Ese's eyes narrowed. The cable behind the wheel had been routed too close to the suspension arm. Its protective sleeve was gray, not black. Worse, the metal coupling on the flexible brake hose had a shallow groove where the approved part should have carried 2 stamped rings. A small detail. But small details killed people. Ese moved around the security officer. "Excuse me," she called to the technician. "Do not put that car on the fast course." The technician froze. Several heads turned. Victor Okonkwo turned too. He was broad across the shoulders, dressed in an emerald green suit with a ruby tie. His smile remained on his face, but his eyes sharpened immediately. Victor was the chief operating officer of Adebayo Mobility. He supervised procurement, distribution, fleet testing, and delivery. In the pavilion, people stepped aside when he approached. He looked Ese up and down. "Who allowed this woman inside?" The security officer hurried forward. "Sir, she came from the service area. I was taking her out." Ese pointed towards the wheel. "That vehicle showed a hydraulic pressure warning. Your technician cleared it." Victor glanced at the young technician. The technician lowered his head. Victor's smile returned. "And you are?" "Ese Williams." "That is not what I asked." What are you? Grace shifted closer to her mother. Ese answered calmly, a vehicle technician. Victor looked at the dark grease beneath her fingernails. A vehicle technician? He laughed. My sister, tightening fan belts under a bridge does not make you an engineer. A few nearby guests smiled. Ese did not. The hose coupling is not the specified type. The pressure warning may be intermittent now, but if that line opens under load, enough. Victor's voice was soft. That made it worse. This is a controlled launch. Every component has passed inspection. You came to repair a food van. Face the level of work that brought you here. Grace stepped forward. Sir, she is only trying to prevent. Did I speak to you? Grace stopped. Ese's hand closed around her daughter's. Do not address her like that, she said. Victor raised his eyebrows. Poor people are becoming very bold. You enter a hall where one wheel costs more than your workshop, and suddenly you want to teach us safety. The camera that had been following Seyi turned slightly. People sensed entertainment. Seyi noticed the disturbance and walked towards them. What is happening? He asked. Victor gave a small, patient laugh. Nothing serious. This roadside mechanic believes she has discovered a defect that our entire technical team missed. Seyi looked at Ese. His first expression was not anger. It was amusement. Madam, have you worked on the Apex R9 before? No. Have you worked on any Apex model? No. Are you certified by Adebayo Mobility? No. Victor spread his hands as though the matter had settled itself. Ese pointed to the technician's tablet. Ask him what code he cleared. Seyi looked towards the technician. The young man swallowed. It was only a transient wheel speed error, sir. Ese turned sharply. Show the fault history. Victor stepped between them. You do not command my staff. It may not be a wheel speed error. Madam. Seyi said, still smiling. Do you know what today's launch cost? No, 146 million naira before the first guest entered this hall. Then you can afford 10 minutes to inspect a brake warning. The smile left his mouth. People made small sounds. Ese had spoken to him as if he were an ordinary man. Seyi moved closer. You smell of burnt oil and roadside dust, he said. Do not bring bridgeside wisdom into 100 million naira launch. The words landed harder than a slap. Grace's fingers tightened around her mother's hand. Some guests laughed openly now. One woman lifted her phone higher. Victor leaned towards Seyi. Sir, let us not waste time. The track demonstration should begin. Ese looked at the white car again. If you put a driver inside that vehicle, you may not know where it will stop. Seyi laughed once. You people have heard her. She says the car will not stop. The live stream camera moved closer. Victor saw an opportunity. Perhaps she should drive it, he said. The laughter rose before he finished. Grace shook her head immediately. No, Victor continued. After all, she has more knowledge than the engineers who built it. Let her show us. Seyi turned the silver key around one finger. The crowd gathered in a wider circle. Madam Ese, he said. Can you drive? Yes. Not Danfo. Not delivery van. This, a vehicle, is still a system of weight, grip, heat, and human decisions. Victor slapped his thigh. Ah, did you hear poetry? People laughed again. Seyi raised the key above Easy's head. Drive it. If you finish the course without touching one cone, the car is yours. The rest happened exactly as the cameras captured it. The laughter. Victor's insult. The key striking as Easy's boot. Seyi telling Lagos to watch poverty trying to drive wealth. Then Ese asked for the promise in writing. That changed the air. Seyi's smile became stiff. You think I will deny what I said? I think spoken promises become weak when expensive things are involved. A murmur moved through the crowd. Toby Daniels, the automotive journalist standing beside the press barrier, lowered her phone and studied Ese properly for the first time. Seyi waved to a legal assistant. Write it. Victor touched his elbow. Sir, there is no need to make this formal. Seyi pulled away. She asked for writing. Give her writing. The assistant used a company laptop. Within 6 minutes, a one-page challenge agreement was printed. The terms were read aloud. Ese must complete the closed precision course in 4 minutes and 10 seconds or less. She must not knock down any cone. She must not leave the marked driving route, except into a designated emergency escape area. She must drive without an instructor in the passenger seat. If she succeeded, Adebayo Mobility would transfer ownership of an Apex R9 of equivalent specification to her, subject to routine registration and insurance requirements. Ese noticed the phrase equivalent specification. Good. The demonstration car might need to remain for inspection. She signed at 2:41 p.m. Seyi signed. Victor signed as witness. Toby photographed every page. Grace pulled Ese aside. Mummy, do not do this because they insulted you. I am not doing it because of insult. That car may truly have a problem. I know. Then why enter it? Because if I refuse, they will put another person inside. Grace stared at her. Ese touched her daughter's cheek. I will not drive faster than the road allows. I will not prove pride with speed. I will test response before I test performance. What if the brake fails? Then I will use what remains. Grace's eyes filled. Mummy. Ese's voice softened. Look at me. Fear is useful when it gives you information. It becomes dangerous when it takes your hands away from you. She turned and walked towards the car. The closed course behind Harbor Point was 680 meters long. It had a slalom section, a low ramp, a wet steering pad, 2 braking boxes, and a final straight ending beside a gravel escape lane. The concrete barrier at the far end was protected by stacked tires, but the arrangement was designed for normal errors, not complete brake loss. Ese walked the first 60 meters on foot. Victor shouted from behind the barrier. Madam, are you going to trek with the car on your head? More laughter. Ese ignored him. She counted the cones, measured the turn space with her eyes, checked where the gravel began, noted the slight rise before the final straight. Then she approached the track marshal. When I raise my left hand, clear the final barrier. The marshal frowned. Madam, the barrier is part of the route. The agreement allows the emergency escape area. You are already planning to fail, Victor called. Ese looked at the marshal, not Victor. If I raise my hand, move the lightweight gate. Do not stand in front of it. Do you understand? The marshal hesitated, then nodded. Ese entered the driver's seat. The cabin smelled of new leather and cold plastic. A digital display curved across the dashboard. The steering wheel felt thick and precise beneath her hands. She did not start the engine immediately. She adjusted the seat, mirrors, steering reach, belt. She pressed the brake pedal 3 times with the engine off. The first press was firm. The second traveled farther. The third held, but there was a faint softness at the bottom. Not enough to prove failure, enough to respect it. She started the engine. The display came alive. No warning. Victor smiled broadly at the camera. You see? The car is perfect. This woman only came to smell air conditioning. Ese selected drive. The timer began. She moved slowly through the first 2 cones. The crowd booed. Seyi folded his arms. She will not finish in time. Ese pressed the brake lightly before the 3rd cone. The response arrived a fraction late. She felt it through her ankle. Not imagination, not fear. Delay. She completed the first slalom without touching a cone. At the ramp, she kept the speed steady and listened for suspension noise. On the descent, she braked again. The pedal held. Victor laughed into a microphone. Perhaps we should give her a bus conductor to shout directions. The timer showed 1 minute, 12 seconds. Ese entered the wet steering pad. She reduced speed before the surface changed, kept both hands quiet, and let the tires find grip without sudden input. The rear moved slightly. She corrected once. Clean. The audience stopped laughing for 2 full seconds. Then applause came from one corner. Grace had started it. Ese exited the wet pad at 2 minutes, 3 seconds. She still had time. The first braking box required a stop between 2 white lines. Ese accelerated to the marked speed, then pressed the pedal progressively. The car stopped inside the box. But the pedal pulsed twice after the vehicle had already slowed. A warning flashed for less than a second. Brake pressure, imbalance. Then it vanished. Ese's jaw tightened. She looked towards the technical bay. Victor was speaking urgently to someone wearing a headset. The timer continued. Ese moved again. She passed the narrow lane, cleared the reverse turn, entered the final approach with 38 seconds remaining. The straight ahead was 140 meters. The finish box waited near the tire barrier. Ese increased speed only to the minimum required by the course. 60 kilometers per hour, no more. At the braking marker, she pressed the pedal. It dropped beneath her foot. The car did not slow. A sharp pop came from the right rear. The steering twitched. Gasps rose from the crowd. Ese did not pump the pedal wildly. She pressed once more to assess what remained. Weak resistance. Partial circuit only. Her right hand selected a lower gear. The engine climbed in pitch. She released the accelerator completely. Kept the car straight. Applied the electronic parking brake in controlled pressure, not a sudden pull. The rear wheels resisted, but not enough. The barrier rushed closer. 70 meters. 50. Ese raised her left hand. The track marshal stood frozen. "Move it!" Grace screamed. The marshal jumped. He dragged the lightweight gate away from the gravel lane. Ese turned gently into the escape area. The tires bit into loose stone. The car shook violently. Gravel struck the underside like thrown seeds. Ese kept the steering straight as speed fell. 20 kilometers per hour. 12. The white car stopped 2.7 meters before the concrete drainage wall. Dust rolled across the track. Nobody spoke. The timer froze at 3 minutes, 58.7 seconds. No cone had fallen. Ese's hands remained on the wheel. 1 breath, 2, 3. Then she switched off the engine. When she stepped out, the crowd stared at her as though she had climbed from fire. Grace ran through the barrier and held her. "You are okay?" "I am okay. Mummy, your hand is shaking." "It is allowed to shake now." Toby reached the car and crouched beside the right rear wheel. Clear fluid darkened the gravel beneath it. A split had opened near the hose coupling. The young technician who had cleared the warning covered his mouth. Seyi walked slowly towards Ese. His face had lost color. For one moment, it seemed he would admit what everybody had seen. Then Victor arrived. He looked at the leaking fluid, looked at the cameras, looked at Ese, and chose war. "She damaged it," he said. Grace turned on him. "What did you say?" Victor pointed at Ese. "She touched that wheel before the run. CCTV will show it. She came here to sabotage this launch." "That is a lie," Grace said. Victor raised his voice. "Security!" The word cracked through the silence. Seyi looked from the broken hose to the crowd. His company logo filled the screen behind him. More than 40,000 people were still watching online. His pride made the decision before his conscience could speak. "This demonstration is over," he said. "The vehicle will be inspected. No transfer will take place until we determine what this woman did." Ese stared at him. "The agreement did not say I must win only if your car remains perfect. You interfered with company property. I warned you before I entered it. You created a scene. I prevented a death." Seyi's eyes hardened. "Remove her." 2 security officers approached. Grace stood in front of her mother. Ese moved her gently aside. She returned the key to Seyi, placing it in his open palm. "Keep the car," she said, "but do not deliver another one until you know why this one refused to stop." Then she walked out of Harbor Point with gravel still inside her boots. Behind her, the first edited clip was already spreading across Lagos. It did not show the leaking brake line. It did not show the warning on the dashboard. It showed only a poor woman picking up a billionaire's key while rich people laughed. And by sunset, millions of strangers had chosen sides. By 7:30 that evening, the video had gathered 1.8 million views. By midnight, it had crossed 4 million. People replayed the moment the key struck Ese's boot. Some laughed with Seyi, some cursed him, some said Ese was brave. Others called her a scammer who had entered the launch looking for compensation. Adebayo Mobility released a statement at 9:12 p.m. It said, an unauthorized individual had interfered with a demonstration vehicle and then operated it outside approved procedure. It said the company was reviewing the event. It did not mention that Ese had completed the course. It did not mention the written agreement. It did not mention the brake fluid on the gravel. At 10:03 p.m., Victor approved a second statement. This one was worse. It claimed preliminary footage showed Ese touching the right rear assembly before the drive. That footage appeared online 15 minutes later. The clip began when Ese crouched beside the wheel. It ended before she stood and warned the technician. It had no sound. By morning, the story had changed. The poor mechanic was no longer the woman who had survived a failing brake system. She was the woman accused of causing it. Ese woke at 5:41 a.m. in the small two-bedroom flat she shared with Grace. She had slept for less than 2 hours. Her right shoulder hurt from holding the steering straight in the gravel lane. A thin red line crossed her neck where the seatbelt had locked. Grace sat at the dining table with her laptop open. "Mummy, do not read the comments." Ese poured water into a metal cup. "How many?" "Too many." "How many clients called?" Grace was silent. Ese looked at her. "Tell me. 6 to support us?" 4 cancelled. One of the cancelled jobs was a monthly maintenance contract for 12 delivery motorcycles and 3 vans. It paid Ese 110,000 naira when all vehicles were serviced. The company manager had sent a short message. "Until the investigation is concluded, we cannot allow someone accused of sabotage near our fleet." Ese read it twice. Then she placed the phone face down. Grace watched her. "Say something." "What should I say?" "That they are wicked. They are afraid. They did not even ask you." Fear does not ask many questions. At 7:15 a.m., someone painted Saboteur across the metal shutter of Ese's workshop. At 82, the landlord called. "I have seen your face on the internet," he said. "Hope no problem. There is a problem, but I did not damage that car." "I am not saying you did, but this building cannot enter police matter." "It has not entered police matter. Please pay the rent by Friday." "I do not want stories." The call ended. Ese stood inside the workshop and stared at the red word on the shutter. Grace brought turpentine and a rag. Together, they began to clean it. The paint spread before it faded. Red stains ran over their fingers. A taxi driver stopped outside and watched them. "Madam Ese," he said, "I saw the video. That car nearly carried you to heaven." Ese continued wiping. "Are you here for repair?" "No. I only came to tell you that you tried." "Tried what?" "To show rich people that poor people also have sense." Ese looked at him. "I was not driving for poor people against rich people. I was driving a faulty machine. Machines do not respect class." The driver nodded slowly. Then he opened his boot and brought out 2 bottles of water. "For you and your daughter." Ese accepted them. "Thank you." He drove away. Before noon, 3 more clients came. One needed a brake pad change. One had a loose steering joint. The third only wanted to take a picture with Ese. She refused the picture. "I am working," she said. At 12:27 p.m., Toby Daniels arrived. She wore a navy blouse, black trousers, and flat shoes. No camera crew followed her. She carried a small recorder, a folder, and the expression of someone who had already heard too many lies from both sides. Grace recognized her immediately. "You are the journalist from the launch." "Yes, you saw what happened." "I saw part of it." Toby turned to Ese. "May we talk?" Ese pointed towards a plastic chair near the workbench. "If you want pity, you came to the wrong place. I do not write pity. If you want me to cry about my rent, go back. I want to know why you recognized that warning before the company did." Ese studied her. "Did they send you?" "No, who pays you?" "My publication." "Who owns it?" Toby answered without irritation. She gave the company name, the editor's name, and the publication's correction policy. Then she placed her recorder on the workbench without switching it on. "I am not asking you to trust me because I am holding a press card," she said. "Trust is also a system. You test it." Ese's expression changed slightly. "What do you need?" "Everything you can support." Toby opened her folder. "The written challenge, your notes before the drive. Any photograph you took, your qualifications, your work history. The name of anyone who saw the warning. The full video from any angle. I also need permission to send the public footage to an independent vehicle safety analyst." Grace leaned forward. "Will you publish that the hose broke? If an expert confirms what broke." It was clear. Clear is not the same as verified. Grace frowned. Toby continued. "I also need Adebayo Mobility's response. If I publish before checking, Victor will use every small mistake to bury the truth." Ese nodded once. That was the first answer that sounded useful. She took the folded challenge agreement from a brown envelope. Toby photographed each page. Ese showed her a small notebook containing the observations she had written at 2:33 p.m., 8 minutes before signing the challenge. "Right rear hose coupling lacks double stamp. Harness sleeve wrong color. Warning cleared without cause confirmed. Check pressure balance before track use." The time was written beside the notes. Toby looked up. "You wrote this before you drove?" "Yes. Who saw you write it?" "Grace. The track marshal may have seen the notebook in my hand." Toby photographed the page. "Where did you train?" Ese's face closed. "That one is not relevant." "It is very relevant. I repair vehicles. You did not handle that brake failure like an ordinary repairer." Grace looked from Toby to her mother. "I have been saying it." Ese gave her a warning glance. Toby waited. Silence stretched between the 3 women. Outside, a generator coughed. A bus horn sounded from the road. Finally, Ese spoke. "I trained commercial drivers in defensive driving and emergency control. For how long? 6 years. Where?" Ars wiped her hand on a cloth that was already clean. "Lagos Continental Fleet Services." Toby's pen stopped. "That company closed after the 2015 procurement investigation." "It did not close because of the investigation. It was sold. Were you involved?" Ese's eyes became hard. "The interview is over." She walked towards the back of the workshop. Grace followed. "Mummy, why did you not tell me?" "Not here. You taught drivers?" "Grace. You worked at Lagos Continental?" "Daddy also drove for them." Ese turned. The name of Grace's father hung in the air without being spoken. Grace had been 11 when he died. She remembered hospital corridors, adults whispering, and her mother returning home with a clear plastic bag containing his watch, belt, and one shoe. What she did not remember was how the case had ended. Ese had always said the accident was complicated. That was all. Toby switched off the recorder she had never turned on. "I will leave," she said. But I need you to understand something. Adebayo Mobility has already told journalists that you were dismissed from Lagos Continental for falsifying maintenance records. If you do not answer, their version will stand alone. Ese froze. Grace stared at her mother. Is that true? No. The word came quickly, too quickly for Grace's fear. Then what happened? Ese looked at the red stains still remaining on her hands. For 11 years, she had hidden the full story because she believed silence protected her daughter from shame. Now the silence had become another person's weapon. Close the shutter, she said. Grace pulled it down. The workshop became dim. Ese sat on the wooden stool beside the workbench and began from the date she still remembered without checking any paper. July 9th, 2015. At 10:47 a.m., she had received 3 brake assemblies from a new supplier approved by the procurement department of Lagos Continental Fleet Services. The parts carried familiar packaging, but the metal finish was wrong. The hose couplings were shallow. The internal reinforcement failed a pressure test at a level below the company's minimum requirement. Ese had rejected the batch. Her supervisor had told her to sign it through. She refused. She submitted a 7-page safety report with photographs and test readings. The report passed through Dele Nwosu, the fleet safety auditor. It should have triggered a suspension of the entire batch. Instead, it disappeared. 2 weeks later, Ese received a disciplinary query accusing her of altering pressure readings. A file bearing her electronic approval appeared in the procurement system. She denied approving anything. Nobody listened. The company suspended her, then dismissed her. 3 other fleet companies withdrew job offers within the next 4 months. Someone had circulated a confidential warning describing her as unstable and dishonest. And Daddy? Grace asked. Ese's throat moved. Your father remained with the company because we needed income. Grace's voice dropped. Was he driving the day he died? Yes. On February 17th, 2016. Grace's father had been driving an airport shuttle carrying no passengers back to the depot. At 6:23 a.m., the vehicle left the road near a service lane and struck a concrete divider. The company investigation blamed excessive speed and driver error. Ese asked to inspect the vehicle. They refused. By the time a lawyer helped her obtain access, the brake assembly had been removed and recorded as accident-damaged scrap. Did the same hose fail? Grace whispered. I do not know. Do you think it did? I think they never allowed anybody to find out. The answer hurt more because it was honest. Grace sat beside her mother. Why did you hide this from me? Because I failed. You reported it, and when they buried it I stopped. You had no money. I also had fear. Ese's eyes shone, but no tears fell. They threatened to take me to court for damaging the company's name. Every lawyer wanted money. You were 11. Rent was due. Your school was calling. I chose survival. That is not failure. It felt like it. Toby remained quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, Do you still have the report? No. My copy was taken when they searched my locker. Emails. The company account was closed. Photographs? My old phone was damaged years ago. Toby exhaled. Without supporting records, the history was powerful but difficult to publish as fact. Ese knew it. That is why I did not tell you, she said. A story without evidence can still be true, but it is easy to kill. Toby closed the folder. I will start with the current car. Grace looked disappointed. That old case matters, it matters, but I cannot build a bridge from air. Toby stood. Do not post any accusation online. Do not contact Victor directly. Preserve the agreement and your notebook. Make copies. Write down every person who was near the vehicle. If police invite you, go with a lawyer. We cannot afford one. Grace said. I know a consumer rights clinic that may review the matter. Ese looked at her carefully. Why are you helping? Toby picked up her bag. I am not helping yet. I am checking whether you are right. After she left, Grace smiled for the first time that day. I like her. Ese lifted the shutter again. Do not like journalists. Give them documents. At Adebayo Mobility headquarters, Victor was already building a wall around Seyi. The company occupied 8 floors of a glass building in Victoria Island. The executive conference room looked over the lagoon. That morning, Seyi sat at the long table while 3 screens displayed social media metrics, press coverage, and market reaction. The launch clip had embarrassed him, but the accusation against Ese had divided public opinion enough to protect the company temporarily. Victor stood beside the screen. We control the narrative if we move quickly, he said. Seyi's jaw tightened. Did the hose break? We are inspecting it. That was not my question. Victor paused. The hose opened near the coupling. Why? Possible mechanical interference. By Ese? She was seen near the wheel. Seyi looked at the silent CCTV clip. Did she have tools? The angle is not clear. She completed the course by leaving the route. The emergency lane was permitted. Victor's expression tightened for 1 second. Sir, the agreement was made under entertainment conditions. It was not a formal promotion. I signed it. You signed because she challenged you in front of cameras. Seyi looked away. That was true. Victor lowered his voice. If we give her the vehicle now, we admit our flagship car nearly killed someone. Every buyer will cancel. Investors will ask what else we missed. Our launch inventory is worth over 9 billion naira. Seyi rubbed his thumb against the edge of the table. What did the dashboard log show? The data has not been fully extracted. Why not? The control module entered protection mode. Then extract it. We will. Victor turned to the legal advisor. In the meantime, we should issue a notice demanding that she stop making defamatory statements. Seyi looked sharply at him. Has she made any? Her daughter is speaking online. Has Ese? No. Then do not send a threat yet. Victor nodded. But at 2:10 p.m., without Seyi's knowledge, he instructed the security department to submit an incident report alleging suspected sabotage. He also ordered the junior technician to sign a statement claiming Ese had touched the brake hose before the test. The technician read the statement 3 times. Sir, I did not see her touch the hose. Victor sat behind his desk. You saw her near the wheel? Yes, but did she enter the restricted area? Yes. Did the hose fail after she entered? Yes, then sign what you know. The technician's fingers trembled. It says I saw her interfere with it. Victor leaned back. You are on a 6-month probation. Your mother's medical plan is attached to this employment. I am not asking you to lie. I am asking you not to become confused about what you witnessed. The room became very quiet. The technician signed. At 4:32 p.m., Ese received a call from a police station, requesting her presence the next morning to answer questions about damage to company property. Grace began pacing. They want to arrest you. They invited me. That is how it starts. We will not run. Toby connected them with the Consumer Rights Clinic. An unnamed duty lawyer agreed to accompany Ese for the initial interview. That night, Ese made 4 copies of every document. 1 stayed with Grace. 1 went to the lawyer. 1 went to Toby. 1 she sealed in a plastic bag and placed beneath a loose floorboard in the workshop office. Grace watched her. You used to do this before? I learned after losing papers once. At the station the next morning, Ese answered each question slowly. Yes, she had approached the wheel. No, she had not touched the brake hose. Yes, she had warned staff. Yes, she had driven the vehicle. No, she had not forced anyone to give her the key. She presented the written agreement and the time-stamped notebook. The investigating officer asked, "Why did you accept to drive if you believed the vehicle was unsafe?" Ese replied, "Because they intended to continue the demonstration. I chose a controlled test at low speed on a closed course with an escape lane I had already identified. That still carried risk." "Yes. So you admit you took a risk?" "I admit I managed one. They were pretending it did not exist." The lawyer looked at her, then almost smiled. After 2 hours, Ese was allowed to leave. No charge was filed. The police requested the vehicle for independent inspection. But Adebayo Mobility's lawyers argued that the car was commercially sensitive and should first be examined at an approved facility. The dispute delayed everything. Victor used the delay. He called 3 fleet operators that still worked with Ese. He did not threaten them directly. He only informed them that she was under investigation and that continued association might create insurance questions. 2 cancelled their appointments. By Friday morning, Ese had earned only 12,000 naira. The landlord came at 8:40 a.m. He stood outside the flat with his arms crossed. "I gave you time. I need 7 more days. You said that last month. I will pay part today." "How much?" 50,000. He laughed without humor. "The balance?" "Next week." From the billionaire's car, Grace stepped forward. "Sir, please do not mock her." The landlord looked embarrassed for 1 second, then covered it with anger. "I am not mocking anybody. I also have responsibilities. 7 days. After that, I will serve notice." When he left, Grace sat on the bed. "We can sell my laptop." "No, I can use the school lab." "No, you cannot keep saying no when there is no money." Ese opened her mouth. A knock came at the door. 2 men stood outside in formal clothes. One carried a leather folder. "We represent Adebayo Mobility Group," he said. Grace moved beside her mother. The men did not enter. They handed Ese a proposed settlement. Adebayo Mobility would provide a new vehicle from a lower model range, pay 3 million naira as goodwill, settle Grace's final year educational fees, and cover medical evaluation for Ese's shoulder injury. In return, Ese would withdraw all public claims, return all copies of launch footage obtained from third parties, agree not to discuss the vehicle's brake system, and acknowledge that the challenge was informal entertainment with no legally enforceable prize. 3 million naira. To Ese, it was not a small amount. It could clear rent, repair the workshop roof, pay Grace's fees, replace her old diagnostic machine. For a few seconds, the paper became heavy in her hand. Grace read over her shoulder. "Mummy." The lawyer waited. Ese asked one question. "Have you stopped delivery of the other R9 vehicles?" The man adjusted his cuff. "I am not authorized to discuss internal operations." "Then call somebody who is." "This offer expires at 5 o'clock. "Have you stopped delivery?" "I cannot answer." Ese folded the document once. Then she gave it back. "You are offering me comfort so that other people can remain in danger." The man's face remained polite. "You should obtain independent legal advice before rejecting a generous resolution." "I have rejected it." "Madam, 3 million naira is not an insult." "The money is not the insult. The silence is." The men left. Grace closed the door and leaned against it. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she whispered, "That money would have helped us." Ese looked at her. "Yes," Grace's eyes filled. "I know you did the right thing. I am only tired of the right thing always being expensive." Ese pulled her daughter close. "So am I." That afternoon, Toby called. "The company has scheduled delivery of at least 17 R9 units next week," she said. "I cannot confirm whether they use the same brake assembly. Find out. I am trying. Try faster. I need documents, Ese, not anger." Ese closed her eyes. "You are right. At 6:18 p.m. When mother and daughter arrived at the workshop, an elderly man was waiting beside the shutter. His grey shirt was damp with sweat. He held a faded brown envelope against his chest as if somebody might snatch it. Ese recognized him before he spoke. Age had bent his shoulders, but not enough to erase the man who had once sat behind the fleet safety desk while her report disappeared. Dele Nwosu. Grace looked between them. Who is he? Dele's eyes did not leave Ese's face. I kept the report you submitted 11 years ago, he said. Ese stopped breathing. The street noise seemed to move far away. Deal held out the envelope, and I have carried the shame of it every day. Ese did not touch the envelope. For 11 years, she had imagined meeting Dele Nwosu again. In some versions, she slapped him. In others, she forced him to kneel. On nights when anger kept her awake, she built entire speeches in her head and watched him collapse beneath every word. Now he stood before her looking smaller than the memory. That did not make the damage smaller. Why now? She asked. Dee lowered the envelope. I saw the video. You saw my report too. Yes. You saw it when my husband was still alive. His eyes dropped. Yes. Grace opened the workshop shutter. Let us not discuss this on the road. Ese remained still. Deal waited. Finally, she entered. Inside, Grace switched on the rechargeable lamp. Deal sat on the plastic chair where Toby had sat 2 days earlier. Ese remained standing. Open it, he said. You open it. His fingers shook as he loosened the string. The envelope contained a photocopy of Ese's 7-page report. The first page bore her name, the date, the Fleet Department stamp, and Deal's handwritten acknowledgement at 11:06 a.m. There were 6 photographs, pressure readings, 3 rejected part numbers, a note recommending immediate quarantine of batch LCFS-BR0715. The last page contained Deal's signature. Grace covered her mouth. Mummy, this is it. Ese did not answer. She studied the page until the letters blurred. Her own words had survived. She had not imagined them. She had not failed to explain. Somebody had understood and chosen not to act. That is only a copy, Dee said. I kept the original acknowledgement log as well. Why? Ese asked. He swallowed. At first, to protect myself. The truth was ugly enough to sound real. Deal explained that when Ese submitted the report, he had agreed with her findings. He placed the batch on temporary hold. Later that afternoon, Victor Okonkwo, then a procurement manager at Lagos Continental, entered his office with 2 executives. They said the supplier had already been paid. They said rejecting the batch would delay operations. They said Ese's test rig had not been recently calibrated. They ordered Delay to amend the log from safety rejection to technical review. He refused for 1 day. The next morning, he received a letter alleging misconduct in a separate audit. His pension eligibility was 3 years away. His wife had just begun treatment for kidney disease. His youngest son was preparing for university. Victor offered him a choice. Sign a revised memo, or lose everything. So you signed, he said. Yes. And when they accused me, I kept quiet. When my husband died, Dealey's chin trembled. I attended the burial from across the road. I could not enter. Ese moved so quickly that Grace stood between them. You came there? I was ashamed. You watched me bury him while you carried this paper? I had no courage. Do not call it no courage. Call it what it was. Deal raised his head. Cowardice. The word settled heavily. Ese breathed through her nose. Grace touched her arm. Mummy, I am fine. She was not fine, but she remained standing. Deal removed another sheet from the envelope. It was a copy of the procurement routing list. Victor's initials appeared beside the approval of the supplier, Meridian Components Limited. A second page showed a payment request authorized 2 days before the safety test was completed. Can these documents be verified? Grace asked. The company archive may still have the log sequence, Daley said. My copy has the original stamp impression. A forensic document examiner can compare it. Why did you keep coming back to these papers? Ese asked. Because every year I told myself I would speak. Every year, I found another reason not to. Ese gave a bitter laugh. And the video made you brave? No. The video showed me that my silence had not ended. It had only found another car. That answer reached her. Not forgiveness. Something smaller. A space where evidence could enter. Ese called Toby. The journalist arrived at 8:09 p.m. She photographed the documents, but did not take them away. She asked Deal to tell the story from the beginning. Then she asked it again in a different order. She checked dates, names, locations. She made him identify which facts he knew directly and which he had only heard. Deal became tired. Toby did not become softer. Did you receive money? She asked. No. Any promotion? 6 months later. Was it connected? I cannot prove it. Did Victor personally tell you to destroy Ese's report? He told me the report must not remain in the active file. Exact words? Dealey closed his eyes. He said, remove this noise before it grows legs. Toby wrote it down. Who else was present? 2 executives. Both are dead now. Any email? No. Any audio? No. Then we do not claim more than the paper proves. Ese watched her. You believe him? I believe the documents deserve testing. Toby called an independent forensic document specialist. The specialist agreed to examine the originals the next morning. She also arranged for an automotive safety laboratory in Ikeja to review publicly visible images of the failed hose, while making clear that no final conclusion could be reached without the physical part. By 11:20 p.m., they had a plan. Deal would sign a sworn statement. The documents would be scanned in high resolution. The original envelope would be sealed, dated, and stored with the legal clinic. Nobody would post photographs online yet. Grace looked frustrated. Why not release it now? Before Victor changes another story. Because once it is public, he knows exactly what we have, Toby replied. He will attack every gap. Evidence is not a stone you throw because you are angry. You preserve it, verify it, and place it where it cannot be kicked away. Ese looked at Grace. Listen to her. Grace nodded. It was the first lesson of that week that did not come from a classroom. The next morning, Toby obtained a high-resolution copy of the launch photographer's images. One photograph showed the right rear brake area before Ese approached it. The coupling was visible. Another image taken after the failure showed the split at the same location. A laboratory engineer gave a cautious preliminary opinion. The part appeared inconsistent with the approved manufacturer's reference images. The outer crimp pattern was shallow. The hose markings looked heat-stamped rather than factory-molded. The failure line suggested separation under pressure, not a clean cut by a tool. Not proof yet. But it weakened sabotage. Toby requested the vehicle's event data from Adebayo Mobility. The company refused. She requested the maintenance log. They refused again. She asked whether deliveries had been paused. No response. Meanwhile, Grace sat at the workshop with 2 sets of photographs spread across the table. One set came from the 2015 report. The other showed the failed Apex R9 hose. She compared the markings. Mummy. Ese was beneath a minibus replacing a worn steering joint. Mummy, come and see. Is the workshop burning? No, then give me 5 minutes. Grace waited exactly 5 minutes. Ese slid out from beneath the vehicle. Grace pointed to the old part number, MC44R715. The new hose carried MCR440715X. The arrangement is similar, Grace said. Same manufacturer prefix, same 44, same 715 sequence. They added letters and moved the dash. That does not prove same supplier. I know, but look at the molding style. The old photograph showed a narrow oval around the final digits. The new part showed the same oval. Ese leaned closer. Grace continued. It could be a reused mold design, or a company related to the old supplier. I am not concluding, I am identifying a lead. Ese smiled despite herself. Good. You always say not to conclude before measurement. I am happy you listen sometimes. Sometimes. Do not become proud. They sent the comparison to Toby. Toby searched corporate records and shipping databases available through her publication. Meridian Components Limited had been dissolved in 2018. But one of its former directors later became a minority shareholder in a company called Metrocore Parts and Systems. Metrocore was a current supplier to Adebayo Mobility. Victor's name did not appear as a shareholder. However, 3 procurement approvals carrying his digital authorization involved Metrocore over the previous 18 months. Toby needed internal records to go further. She did not have them. At Adebayo Mobility, Victor was also comparing documents. A staff member had informed him that Dele Nwosu had visited Easy's workshop. Victor remembered Dele immediately. Fear entered his body as anger. He summoned the junior technician. Did you keep any copy of the diagnostic log from launch day? No, sir. Did you send it to anyone? No, sir. Who instructed you to clear the warning? The technician stared at him. Victor leaned forward. I am asking because engineers are now blaming one another. Be careful that nobody places this matter on your head. The technician's lips became dry. You told me the vehicle could not display a warning during the launch. Victor's voice dropped. I told you to verify and reset a transient warning. You said reset it before Mr. Adebayo came. Do you have a recording? No, then do not misremember my words. Victor dismissed him and called the head of information systems. He ordered the launch vehicle's diagnostic history placed under executive restriction. The information officer hesitated. Sir, the board audit policy requires a preservation hold once a safety complaint is filed. I am not asking you to delete anything. What exactly should I do? Restrict access until legal review. The officer complied, but the request created an audit trail. Victor did not think about that. Power had protected him for too long. It had made him careless in small ways. Seyi, meanwhile, was losing patience. He called Victor into his office on the 6th day after the launch. 17 vehicles are scheduled for handover on Tuesday, Seyi said. Have you cleared the brake assembly? Our internal team found no systemic defect. Show me the report. Victor placed a 6-page document on the desk. Seyi read the executive summary. It blamed external mechanical interference and stated that no similar warning had been found in other vehicles. How many vehicles did they inspect? Seyi asked. 6. From the same batch. Mixed inventory. That is not what I asked. Victor paused. 2 were from the same batch. Why only 2? The others had already moved to distribution yards. Seyi pushed the report away. Bring one back. Sir, logistics. Bring one back today. Victor smiled carefully. Of course. He left the office and immediately called the distribution manager. He did not request a random vehicle. He provided a chassis number from a unit he knew had received an approved replacement hose during pre-delivery inspection. That was the vehicle returned for testing. It passed. Seyi accepted the result. For one more day. Toby's breakthrough came from a customer, not an employee. A private airport transport company had ordered 9 Apex R9 vehicles for executive clients. Its operations manager agreed to speak off the record after seeing the launch video. He sent Toby photographs from the delivery inspection of 2 units already received. One photograph showed the right rear hose marking clearly. MCR 440715X, the same code family. The manager also shared an invoice referencing lot number MCX7319. Toby traced that lot through a shipping record to a container containing 3,211 flexible brake hoses imported by Metrocore Parts and Systems. She called Ese at 6:44 a.m. We may have more vehicles. How many? I cannot confirm yet. At least the 9 ordered by that company. Possibly more. Do not publish only to make noise. Toby was silent for half a second. That is usually my line. I want the company warned first. They have ignored every question. Give them the lot number. Tell them they have 48 hours to stop delivery and inspect. If I reveal the lot, they will know our source, protect the customer's name. But give enough for them to act. Toby understood what Ese was choosing. Publishing immediately would damage Adebayo mobility before the company could prepare a response. It would also make Ese the center of a national scandal. Interviews would follow. Donations might come. The pressure could force a quick settlement. But vehicles might already be on the road. Ese cared more about stopping them than winning the first headline. Toby sent a formal safety notice to Adebayo Mobility at 9 a.m. It identified the suspected lot, cited photographic evidence and requested confirmation by 9 a.m. 2 days later, that deliveries had been paused. Victor intercepted the notice. He called Metrocore. The supplier's representative denied any defect and reminded Victor that all shipments carried inspection certificates. Victor knew those certificates. He had approved the contractor that issued them. He called Seyi. A journalist is preparing a hostile report based on stolen commercial documents, he said. Which journalist? Toby Daniels. What documents? Unverified photographs and an old accusation from a disgruntled former employee. Ese and Dele Nwosu. Seyi leaned back. He remembered Dele's name from the old fleet company. What is the accusation? Victor's answer came too quickly. That I approved unsafe parts 11 years ago. You? Yes. It is nonsense. Seyi looked at him. Why did you not tell me you knew Ese? Victor smiled. I did not know her personally. She was a junior technician in a large company. She remembers you. People remember the name of whoever signs their dismissal. Did you sign it? I signed a procurement response, not her dismissal. Seyi's eyes narrowed. Pause Tuesday's deliveries. Victor's smile disappeared. Sir, the evidence is not credible. Then 48 hours will prove it. The public may interpret a pause as admission. We do not need to announce it yet. Victor saw the decision slipping. He played his final card. Sir, the banks are reviewing the next financing round. A delivery pause tied to a break allegation can trigger a material risk notice. We could lose 2.4 billion naira in credit access. Seyi looked towards the window. The lagoon reflected broken pieces of sunlight. His company employed more than 800 people. A collapse would not hurt only him. That was the argument he gave himself. It sounded responsible. It was also convenient. Inspect the full lot overnight, he said. Do not pause unless there is a second failure. Victor nodded. Understood. He did not inspect the full lot. He selected 12 vehicles from mixed batches, replaced 2 questionable hoses before testing, and reported that all units passed. The next morning, Toby received no confirmation of a delivery pause. She prepared to publish. Ese asked for 6 more hours. Why? Grace demanded after the call ended. They are protecting themselves. I want proof that removes their excuses. They will always create another excuse. That does not mean we become careless. Grace paced across the workshop. Mummy, sometimes I think you are still afraid. Ese looked at her. I am. The answer stopped Grace. Ese continued. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is deciding which fear deserves obedience. I fear what Victor can do. I also fear an innocent person entering one of those vehicles. The second fear is bigger. At 1:17 p.m., a security guard from Adebayo Mobility called Toby from an unregistered number. He said a test driver had reported delayed braking in the company yard that morning. The car had touched a protective rail at low speed. Nobody was injured. The guard would not give his name. He sent one photograph. A white Apex R9 rested against a yellow barrier. A small stain spread beneath the right rear wheel. Toby forwarded it to Ese. Ese enlarged the image. "Same area," she said. "Can we publish?" Toby asked. "Verify the vehicle number." Already doing it. The number matched the suspect lot. At Adebayo Mobility, Seyi received the incident call at 1:32 p.m. He walked to the yard himself. The test driver stood beside the vehicle, breathing hard. "What happened?" Seyi asked. "The pedal became soft before the stop box, sir. I used the parking brake and moved towards the rail." "Were you injured?" "No, sir. Victor arrived 3 minutes later." Seyi turned on him. "You told me there was no second failure." Victor crouched beside the wheel. "This may be a different issue. The same side, the same symptom. We need proper analysis." "Yes," Seyi said. "Independent analysis." Victor stood. "Sir, bringing outsiders into this now." Enough. It was the first time Seyi had spoken to him that way. By 2:10 p.m., the entire suspect inventory was placed on internal hold. An independent automotive safety laboratory received instructions to inspect the failed demonstration car, the yard vehicle, and a random sample from the same shipment. The lawyers objected. Victor objected. Seyi signed the order anyway. Then he called Toby. "We have paused deliveries pending inspection," he said. "Will you state that publicly?" "Not until we know more. Customers already have vehicles from that lot. We are identifying them." "How many?" Seyi looked at the list on his desk. 73. The number made his mouth dry. 73 units may require inspection, he said. Toby wrote it down. "Will you contact every owner today?" "Our team is preparing communication." "That is not an answer." "Yes, we will contact them today." When the call ended, Seyi sat alone for a while. He remembered the gravel dust around Easy's car. He remembered her warning. He remembered the key striking her boot. For the first time, shame arrived without anger to protect him. It stayed. The independent inspection began that evening under evidence preservation rules. Each part was photographed before removal. Serial markings were recorded. Samples were sealed. The vehicle's software log was copied by 2 technicians from separate organizations. Victor attempted to restrict access to the diagnostic history. The information systems officer produced the audit request, showing Victor had placed the file under executive restriction 4 days earlier. The laboratory asked why. Victor called it routine legal control. Nobody answered. At 11:53 p.m., the first major result appeared. The brake hose on the demonstration car had not been cut. It had separated at the crimp under hydraulic pressure. The metal coupling composition did not match the approved supplier specification. The printed certification code belonged to another manufacturer. The software log showed 3 pressure imbalance warnings before Ese entered the vehicle. 2 had been manually cleared. 1 occurred during her drive at 12:14 a.m. Seyi called Victor into the laboratory conference room. The report lay between them. "Explain this." Victor did not sit. "We may be dealing with supplier fraud." "You approved the supplier, based on certificates. You also told me Ese interfered with the vehicle. That was the preliminary security assessment." "Did you order the warning cleared before the launch?" "No." The junior technician stood at the far end of the room. Seyi looked at him. What happened? The technician glanced at Victor. Victor's face became still. Seyi noticed. Look at me, he said. The technician did. Who told you to clear the warning? Mr. Okonkwo told me the car must not show any warning when you came to the floor. Victor slammed his palm on the table. That is not what I said. The technician flinched. Seyi did not. Did you sign a statement accusing Ese? Yes, sir. Was it true? Tears gathered in the young man's eyes. No, sir. Victor pointed at him. This boy is trying to save his job after negligence. The laboratory director closed the report. This discussion should continue with legal counsel present. Seyi stared at Victor. For 8 years, Victor had stood beside him through expansion, strikes, loan negotiations, and 2 failed product lines. Seyi had called him loyal. Now loyalty looked like a curtain hiding a fire. Leave the laboratory, Seyi said. Victor's mouth opened. Sir, leave. Victor walked out. But the evidence had not finished moving. The next morning, forensic examination confirmed that Deli's documents were consistent with records from 2015. The stamp impression matched a known company stamp. The paper and toner were appropriate for the period. Toby's publication located an archived court filing that mentioned the same supplier batch during a separate insurance dispute. The old case and the new failure now stood close enough to touch. Toby called Ese. We have enough to publish the history as a documented allegation. The current failure is independently confirmed. Ese looked at Grace. Has every owner been contacted? Adebayo Mobility says yes. They issued a stop driving advisory at 6 a.m., then publish. The article went live at 8 a.m. Its title did not call Ese a hero. It asked a harder question. How a BRAC warning was cleared before a Lagos luxury car launch. The report included the failed hose findings, the diagnostic log, the 73 affected vehicles, Ese's earlier warning, the signed driving challenge, and Deli's 2015 documents. It also included Adebayo Mobility's statement that the company had begun an independent review. Within an hour, national news stations picked it up. By noon, the board of Adebayo Mobility called an emergency meeting. Victor arrived with his own lawyers. Seyi arrived with the laboratory report. Ese was not there. She was at her workshop replacing the brake pads on a school staff bus. Grace watched the news on her phone. Mummy, they are discussing you everywhere. Pass me the 14mm spanner. Did you hear me? I heard. You are trending. The bus still has bad pads. Grace laughed despite the tension. Then a black vehicle stopped outside. Seyi Adebayo stepped out alone. He was not wearing the cobalt suit. He wore a plain white shirt with the sleeves folded and dark trousers. For the first time, he entered Ese's workshop without cameras. The workers nearby became quiet. Ese did not crawl out from beneath the bus. What do you want? She asked. Seyi looked at her boots extending from beneath the chassis. I came to speak. Speak, privately. If your words need privacy, check them well. Grace looked away to hide a smile. Seyi waited until Ese slid out. She stood and wiped her hands. He looked at the small workshop, the patched roof, the old compressor, the shelf of carefully labeled bolts, the red shadow of Sabot still visible on the shutter. I was wrong, he said. Ese said nothing. The vehicle had a defective hose. The warning existed before the launch. I know. Victor may have concealed information from me. You concealed information from yourself. His face tightened. What does that mean? You saw a poor woman, so you decided whatever came from her mouth must be noise. I came to apologize. No, you came because the laboratory agreed with me. Seyi inhaled slowly. We are recalling the affected vehicles. Publicly, we issued an advisory. That is not the same as explaining how it happened. The investigation is ongoing. And while it is ongoing, you want what? Seyi removed a document from a folder, a confidential resolution. We will honor the vehicle agreement. We will compensate you for lost business. We will fund an independent review of the 2015 accident. In return, public communication will come through agreed legal channels until the investigation is complete. Ese did not take the paper. You brought another silence agreement. This is not silence. It is controlled communication. A quiet recall protects your share price. A public explanation protects the next driver. Seyi's patience cracked. You think destroying my company will protect people? 800 employees depend on it. You are still doing it. Doing what? Making your comfort the center of every danger. His voice rose. I am trying to manage a crisis. You created one when you trained everybody around you to hide bad news. I did not order counterfeit parts. You ordered laughter when somebody warned you. The workshop became completely silent. Even the traffic outside seemed to pause. Ese stepped closer. You want Victor to carry all the shame because he may have committed the fraud. Let him carry his own. But your own is waiting for you too. Seyi looked at the red stain on the shutter. What do you want? He asked. The truth in the same place where you told lies about me. A public hearing. A public explanation. Independent evidence. Customer questions, employee questions, no edited videos, no speeches that turn you into the victim. The board will never agree. Then I have nothing more to say. Seyi picked up the document. At the entrance, he stopped. If I do this, the company may lose everything. Ese answered without raising her voice. If you do not, somebody else may lose more than money. Seyi left. That evening, the board gave him two choices. Handle the matter internally. Remove Victor. Blame supplier fraud. Protect investor confidence. Or hold an open, independently moderated safety session and accept whatever the evidence revealed. 5 directors supported secrecy. 3 supported disclosure. Seyi held the deciding vote. He thought about the signed agreement. The failed hose. 73 owners. The technician's frightened face. Ese's words. Your own shame is waiting for you too. At 9:37 p.m., he voted for disclosure. The public session was scheduled for 3 days later at Harbor Point Motor Pavilion. The same hall, the same stage, the same white car. Victor received the invitation at 10:02 p.m. He read the agenda and smiled. He had spent more than a decade surviving documents, audits, and frightened employees. He believed he could survive one mechanic. He did not yet understand that the woman he had erased in private was about to meet him where everybody could see. The public session began at 4 p.m. on the 21st day after the launch. By 3:10, every chair inside Harbor Point was occupied. Customers sat in the first 4 rows. Behind them were journalists, engineers, insurance representatives, consumer advocates, and Adebayo mobility employees. More than 200,000 people had registered to watch the live stream. The company had placed 3 fixed cameras in the hall and agreed that the independent moderator would control the broadcast feed. No marketing team could cut away. The white Apex R9 stood at the center of the stage. It had been cleaned, but the right rear wheel remained removed. The failed hose sat inside a transparent evidence box beside it. A large screen displayed the laboratory's chain of custody number. Ese entered through the main doors at 3:43 p.m. She wore a clean, burnt orange coverall with a light teal shirt beneath it. The clothes were not expensive. She had not dressed herself into another class to deserve respect. Her hair was neatly wrapped, and the old brown safety boots remained on her feet. Grace walked beside her in a butter-yellow blouse and dark skirt. Deal followed several steps behind. carrying no envelope. The original documents were already with the moderator. People began whispering. Some stood to take photographs. Ese did not look at the cameras. She looked at the car. Seyi arrived 5 minutes later in the same cobalt blue suit he had worn at the launch. That had been his decision. He did not want clothing to help him pretend the first day belonged to another version of himself. Victor entered last. Emerald green suit, ruby tie. 2 lawyers beside him. He smiled at Ese as he passed. "You should have taken the money," he said softly. Ese met his eyes. "You should have listened to the warning." The moderator called the room to order. She explained the rules. Every factual claim would be linked to a document, witness statement, or technical finding. Speakers could challenge evidence, but they could not insult witnesses. Questions from customers would be taken after the technical presentation. Victor whispered something to his lawyer. The first presentation came from the independent laboratory director. He described the examination process in simple language. The demonstration vehicle's right rear flexible brake hose had separated at the crimped coupling during hydraulic loading. The hose material and metal composition did not match the approved specifications supplied in Adebayo Mobility's engineering records. On the screen, 2 enlarged images appeared. The approved component showed deep, even compression rings and a laser-etched identification code. The failed part showed shallow compression and a heat-stamped imitation. The failure pattern, the director said, is consistent with pressure separation. We found no cut mark, tool indentation, or evidence of deliberate external damage. The hall stirred. Victor's lawyer stood. "Is it possible that improper handling weakened the coupling before the drive?" The director answered carefully. "Any component can be damaged through improper handling. However, we found no physical evidence of such handling. We also pressure-tested 5 unused hoses from the same shipment. 2 failed below the required minimum threshold." The room grew louder. The moderator asked for silence. The director continued. "The car's braking system used a split hydraulic circuit. When the rear hose opened, the vehicle retained limited braking on the other circuit, but pedal travel increased sharply, and stopping distance became unpredictable. Ese's use of engine braking, controlled parking brake input, and the gravel escape lane had reduced the speed without destabilizing the car. This was not a complete absence of all braking force, he explained. It was a severe loss of expected braking performance. At the speed used on the closed course, the driver's response prevented a higher energy impact. No exaggeration, no miracle. Skill, preparation, and an escape route. The next slide displayed the vehicle's diagnostic history. 3 pressure imbalance warnings had occurred before the final failure. 2 were cleared manually before the demonstration. The third appeared during Ese's drive. The moderator asked, "Who had access to clear the warnings?" The laboratory director referred the question to Adebayo Mobility's information officer. The officer stepped forward. He explained that the junior technician's device had been used. The technician's login recorded the action. The device also showed a message from Victor's office instructing staff to ensure the dashboard was clear before Seyi entered the launch floor. Victor rose. That message did not instruct anybody to hide a safety fault. The moderator looked at him. "You will have time to respond." Victor sat slowly. The junior technician was invited to speak. He walked towards the microphone with both hands clasped in front of him. He looked younger than his 26 years. "I saw the warning at 2:18 p.m., he said. "I reported it to the technical supervisor. Mr. Okonkwo came to the service area. He asked whether the vehicle could still move. I said yes, but I recommended a pressure check. He said there was no time. He told me to clear the warning and return the car to display. Victor's lawyer stood again. Did Mr. Okonkwo use the words, "hide a dangerous defect"? No. Did he tell you the brakes would fail? No. Then you are giving your interpretation. The technician swallowed. I am telling what happened. The lawyer lifted a document. You signed a statement saying Ms. Williams interfered with the rear wheel. Yes. So, either that statement was true, or you are admitting that you signed a false statement. The young man's face tightened with shame. I signed a false statement. A sound passed through the audience. Why? The moderator asked. The technician looked at Victor. Because he reminded me I was on probation and that my mother's health insurance depended on my job. Victor stood so quickly that his chair moved backwards. That is a wicked lie. The moderator struck the table once. Mr. Okonkwo, sit down. I will not sit while an employee destroys my name to save himself. Seyi turned towards him. Sit down, Victor. Victor looked at Seyi. For years, Seyi's voice had given him authority. Now it removed it. Victor sat. Toby spoke next. She did not describe herself as the woman who exposed a scandal. She presented the timeline of verification, the original launch photograph. Ese's notebook written before the drive, the signed challenge, the delivery invoice, the suspect shipment. The second low-speed incident in the company yard. On the screen, the full unedited security footage appeared. The public had already seen the silent clip of Ese crouching beside the wheel. Now they saw what came before. They saw the technician clearing the warning. They saw Ese point to the coupling. They heard her say, "Do not put that car on the fast course." They saw Victor block her. They heard Seyi tell her not to bring bridgeside wisdom into a 100 million naira launch. The hall went still. On the original day, laughter had covered the cruelty. Without laughter, the words sounded naked. The video continued. Seyi threw the key. It struck Ese's boot. A woman in the second row lowered her eyes. One Adebayo mobility employee covered his face. Seyi did not look away from the screen. He watched himself. Every second. When the clip ended, the moderator turned to Ese. You have been accused of entering the event to create a public scene, interfering with the vehicle, and using the incident to obtain money. How do you respond? Ese approached the microphone. She did not begin with her suffering. She began with sequence. At 2:18 p.m., a warning appeared. At 2:21, it was cleared. At approximately 2:26, I observed the non-standard coupling and cable routing. At 2:29, I warned the technician. At 2:33, I wrote my observations in my notebook. At 2:41, I signed the driving agreement. I had no tool in my hand. I did not touch the brake hose. The photographs and laboratory report support that. Victor's lawyer rose. Your technical certification was no longer current. Is that correct? Yes. So you presented yourself as an expert without a valid current certification. I presented myself as a vehicle technician. I did not claim to be the laboratory. You had been dismissed from a previous fleet company for falsifying records. No. I was dismissed after I reported unsafe parts. The record used to accuse me was altered. That is your claim. That is why the documents are here. The moderator admitted Deli's 2015 report into the presentation. A scanned image filled the screen. Ese's name, the date, the rejected part numbers, the fleet stamp. The same shallow crimp pattern visible in the old photographs. A forensic examiner confirmed that the document materials were consistent with 2015, and that the acknowledgement signature belonged to Dele Nwosu. Dele walked to the microphone. His steps were slow. He looked at Ese, then at the audience. In July 2015, Ms. Williams submitted this report to me. I reviewed her test figures. I believed the parts were unsafe. He paused. The hall waited. I was pressured to remove the report from the active file. I signed a revised memo. When she was accused of altering data, I did not defend her. When she lost her job, I did not defend her. When her husband died in a fleet vehicle the following year, I still did not speak. His voice broke. Victor leaned towards his lawyer. Delay continued. I knew she was telling the truth. I kept my salary and allowed her to lose her name. Nobody moved. Some confessions were not loud. They still shook a room. Deal did not ask Ese to forgive him. He did not blame his wife's illness or his pension. He explained the pressure, but he placed responsibility where it belonged. I was afraid, he said, but fear does not change the result of silence. When people hide safety information to protect their income, they may be protecting danger instead. The moderator displayed the old procurement routing sheet. Victor's initials appeared beside Meridian Components Limited. Victor stood during his allotted response. His smile had gone. This entire presentation is designed to turn ordinary procurement disputes into criminal accusations, he said. The old company approved those parts through several departments. I did not manufacture anything. I did not drive the vehicle in 2016. I did not install the hose on the Apex R9. He pointed at Ese. This woman has spent 11 years blaming successful people for the condition of her life. Now she has found an audience. A few people murmured angrily. Ese remained still. Victor faced the crowd. Yes, a component failed. Suppliers commit fraud. Employees make mistakes. That does not prove I conspired to harm anyone. The moderator asked, "Did you have any financial relationship with Metrocore Parts and Systems beyond your role at Adebayo Mobility?" "No." "Did you influence the selection of its inspection contractor?" "I participated in procurement review." "Did you disclose that a former director of Meridian Components later held shares in Metrocore?" "I was not aware." Toby raised her hand. The moderator recognized her. Toby submitted a corporate registration record and 2 internal emails obtained by the board's external investigators that morning. One email, sent 18 months earlier, showed Victor recommending Metrocore as a continuity partner because he was familiar with its management history. The second email instructed procurement staff not to overcomplicate supplier checks for a company that had served the sector for years. Victor's lawyer objected to the phrasing being taken out of context. Then the external auditor presented the payment trail. Metrocore had paid consulting fees to a business owned by Victor's brother-in-law. The payments totaled 48,600,000 naira across 14 months. The consulting company had no employees and no public record of work performed. Victor's face changed, only slightly. But everybody saw it. "That is not my company," he said. "Did you disclose the family relationship?" the auditor asked. "No, because I was not involved in the consulting arrangement." "Did you attend a meeting at the consulting company's office on March 12th? "I attend many meetings." A photograph appeared. Victor entering the building. Then a visitor log carrying his signature. Victor looked at Seyi. "This is becoming a trial without due process," Seyi answered. "No, it is evidence being preserved for due process." The difference landed hard. The moderator reminded the audience that no criminal finding would be made in the hall. The materials would be forwarded to the relevant investigators. Victor remained entitled to legal representation and a full response. That realism made the moment stronger. He would not be dragged away because people were angry. He would be removed from power because evidence had made continued control impossible. The external auditor confirmed that Victor's system access had been suspended. His procurement authority had been revoked. His company devices were being preserved. The board had authorized a full review of supplier contracts signed during his tenure. A customer stood during the question period. "My family used one of the affected vehicles for 6 days," he said. "Why were we not warned immediately after the first failure?" Seyi rose. Victor remained seated. Seyi approached the microphone. "Because I allowed internal reputation concerns to delay the correct response," he said. The answer caused a ripple. The customer's face tightened. "Did you know the first vehicle had failed?" "Yes." "Did you know Ms. Williams warned you before the drive?" "Yes." "Then why did you accuse her?" Seyi looked at Ace. The old instinct rose inside him, explain the pressure. Mention the live stream. Blame incomplete information. Describe Victor's manipulation. All of it contained pieces of truth. None of it answered the question. "Because I was arrogant," he said. The room became silent again. "I believed the people with titles around me before I examined what a woman in work clothes had shown me. I treated her poverty as evidence against her intelligence. When the car failed, I protected my pride before I protected the truth." Ese watched him. He continued. "Afterwards, I approved communication that described her as unauthorized and suggested interference before we had completed an independent inspection. My lawyers offered money in exchange for restrictions on what she could say. I told myself I was protecting employees and investors. In reality, I was also protecting myself from public shame." A camera shutter clicked. Seyi did not pause. "Victor may face serious allegations, but his actions do not remove my responsibility as chief executive. A system where staff fear reporting danger is a system leadership has failed to govern." One board member shifted uncomfortably. Seyi announced the corrective actions. All 73 affected vehicles would remain under a stop-driving advisory until inspected. Owners would receive replacement transport at company expense. Every vehicle in the relevant production window would undergo brake hose verification. Not only those carrying the suspect lot number. The company would publish weekly recall progress. An independent safety committee would gain authority to stop product delivery without executive approval. Employees who reported safety concerns would be protected from retaliation through an external reporting channel. The company would also fund a review of prior incidents linked to the supplier network, including the 2016 crash involving Easy's husband. A journalist asked, "Will you remain chief executive?" Seyi answered, "The board has suspended my direct operational authority during the restructuring review. I will accept its final decision." He did not call himself brave. He did not ask for applause. None came. Accountability was not a performance reward. It was a debt. The moderator turned to the signed vehicle challenge. The agreement promised Ms. Williams an Apex R9 of equivalent specification if she completed the course within 4 minutes and 10 seconds, did not strike a cone, and remained within the permitted route, including the designated escape area. The verified time was 3 minutes, 58.7 seconds. No cone was struck. The company accepts that she fulfilled the written conditions. The audience began murmuring. Seyi walked towards a small table beside the evidences display. A second silver key rested there. "The demonstration vehicle must remain in evidence," he said. "A separate Apex R9 has been withdrawn from unaffected inventory, stripped for full inspection, and tested by the independent laboratory. Ownership documents are ready for transfer." He lifted the key. This time he did not hold it above Ease's head. He did not throw it. He walked down from the stage and stood in front of her. "Miss Williams," he said, "the vehicle is yours under the agreement." Ese looked at the key. Cameras leaned towards her. Victor watched from the side, his face rigid. Seyi continued. I am also sorry for what I said and how I treated you. Ese took the key, but she did not smile. I am taking this car because your word must carry weight, she said. Not because you have finally decided to pity me. Seyi nodded. I understand. No, sir, you are beginning to understand. A low sound moved through the hall, not laughter. Something closer to recognition. Ese turned towards the audience. Many people think the lesson today is that a poor mechanic can drive an expensive car. That is not the lesson. She held the key in one hand. The lesson is that danger does not ask whether the person warning you arrived in a suit. A cracked hose does not respect the bank account of the driver. A bad decision does not become safe because a powerful person approved it. She looked towards the Adebayo mobility employees. If you see something unsafe, write it down. Record the date. Use the official channel. Keep a copy where the law permits. Do not change evidence. Do not exaggerate what you cannot prove. And do not allow anybody to make you feel foolish for asking a machine to be checked before a human being enters it. Then she looked at the customers. If a warning light appears, do not clear it only because the vehicle can still move. A warning is information. Find the cause. Finally, she looked at Seyi, and when somebody speaks, hear the evidence before you measure their clothes. People rose. The applause began in the back and moved forward like rain crossing a roof. Ese did not lift the key above her head. She placed it in the chest pocket of her orange coverall. Grace reached her first. She wrapped both arms around her mother. You did it, she whispered. Ese held her. We did not finish. Across the hall, 2 corporate security officers approached Victor. They did not handcuff him. They informed him that his building access had been revoked and requested company identification, devices and keys under the board's preservation order. Victor looked around as if waiting for someone to object. Nobody did. His gaze found Deal. You think confessing makes you clean? He asked. Deal answered quietly. No, it makes me available to repair what I helped damage. Victor turned to Ese. This will not bring your husband back. The cruelty of the sentence made Grace step forward. Ese stopped her with one hand. No, Ese said. It will not. Victor's mouth curved faintly, believing he had wounded her. Ese continued. But it may stop another family from receiving one shoe in a plastic bag and no honest answer. Victor's expression broke, only for a second. Then he walked out between the security officers, his ruby tie bright beneath the pavilion lights. The crowd did not follow him. Outside, evening settled over Lagos. The inspected white Apex R9 waited near the entrance. Its pearl paint reflected the last gold light from the sky. The ownership transfer was not complete yet. Insurance and registration would take several days. But Ese was allowed to sit inside for photographs and a ceremonial handover. She opened the passenger door first. Grace stared at her. What? Enter. Grace laughed. You are the owner, and you are my daughter. Enter before I change my mind. Grace sat in the passenger seat. Ese walked around to the driver's side. Before she entered, Toby approached. May I ask one final question? Ese looked at the cameras behind her. 1. Why did you refuse the first settlement when you needed the money? Ese glanced through the windscreen at Grace. Because hunger can make silence look reasonable, she said. That is why companies must never use poverty as leverage against truth. Toby lowered her recorder. Ese entered the car. She adjusted the seat, the mirrors, the steering reach, the belt, exactly as before. Grace watched her. You still do not trust it? Ese pressed the brake pedal twice. I trust inspection. I still verify. The engine started. This time, no warning appeared. Ese did not race away. She drove slowly through the open gate, past the journalists, past the same floor where people had and into Lagos traffic with both hands steady on the wheel. Behind her, the company's recall had only begun. Ahead of her, another kind of work was waiting. 3 months later, the red word on Ese's workshop shutter was gone. Not painted over. Gone. Grace had spent one Saturday sanding the metal until every trace disappeared. Ese applied 2 coats of dark grey paint, then fixed a new sign above the entrance. Second Gear Safety and Skills Center. The center did not look like the grand training school people imagined after seeing Ese receive the Apex R9. It occupied a converted warehouse beside her original workshop. The roof still made noise when rain fell. The classroom contained 31 plastic chairs, 2 whiteboards, and a projector bought from a closed business college. But the brake testing bay was properly marked. The tools were calibrated. The emergency exits were clear. And every trainee received protective equipment before touching a vehicle. Ese had not sold the white car. She had also refused to pretend the car alone had built the center. The ownership document allowed her to secure a business loan at a reasonable rate. The company paid a legally reviewed settlement for reputational harm and lost contracts. A transport foundation contributed equipment after examining the training plan. Ese invested her own workshop savings, small as they were, and accepted no donation that required her to become anybody's campaign decoration. Money helped. A plan made it useful. The first program trained 24 women from low-income communities in basic vehicle inspection and fleet safety. The second taught commercial drivers how to document defects before leaving a depot. A weekend class showed ordinary vehicle owners how to read warning indicators, check tires, and recognize when a mechanic was giving them empty grammar. Ese did not tell students that knowledge would make life fair. She told them, knowledge made danger harder to hide. On the first Monday of the 3rd month, she stood beside an old brake rig with a failed hose mounted behind clear protective plastic. Do not look only at the point where it burst, she told the class. Ask why it entered the system. Who ordered it? Who inspected it? Who saw the warning? Who had power to stop the vehicle? Safety is not one person standing at the end with a spanner. It is a chain. A trainee raised her hand. What if your supervisor says you should ignore it? Ask for the instruction in writing, and if they refuse, record that you reported it through the proper channel. Keep a lawful copy. Do not steal confidential information. Do not change the part. Do not make claims beyond what you saw, then escalate to the next authorized safety channel. What if they sack you? Ese paused. The room became quiet. They may, she said. I will not lie to you. Doing the right thing does not always protect you immediately. That is why organizations need laws, independent reporting, and leaders who do not punish bad news. Courage is necessary, but a good system should not demand heroism every day. The students wrote that down. At noon, Dele Nwosu arrived carrying a box of audit manuals. He volunteered twice a week. The first time he came, Ese had almost told him not to return. Seeing him near the training documents opened an old pain inside her. Grace noticed and asked whether forgiveness required access. Ese thought about the question for 2 days. Her answer was no. Forgiveness did not mean pretending trust had repaired itself. It did not mean Dele could enter every part of her life. It did not remove the consequence of what he had done. But accountability could include useful labor. So Ese gave him a narrow role. He taught document control, audit trails, and the danger of signing a report one had not verified. He worked under supervision. He received no salary. Every class began with the truth about his own failure. That Monday, he placed the manuals on a table. 113 copies, he said. Ese checked the delivery note. 112. Deal blinked. He counted again. 112. Ese lifted an eyebrow. The first lesson in audit is not to announce numbers from your spirit. The trainees laughed. Deal smiled faintly. Yes, Ma. He no longer expected sympathy because he had confessed. He understood that remorse was not measured by how badly a person felt. It was measured by what they changed after feeling it. Grace completed her final project 2 weeks later. Her low-cost brake inspection rig did not win a magical international prize. It did something more believable and more useful. It passed departmental assessment, received a distinction, and attracted the attention of the independent laboratory that had tested the Apex R9 parts. The laboratory offered her a 12-month graduate trainee position. Grace accepted only after asking about reporting independence, supervision, and conflict of interest rules. Ese laughed when she heard the questions. You have become difficult. I learned from you. One of me is enough. On graduation morning, Grace wore a simple cream dress beneath her gown. Ese arrived early in the white Apex R9, but parked at the far end of the lot, where the car would not become the center of her daughter's day. When Grace's name was called, Ese stood before everybody else did. She clapped until her palms hurt. For years, she had feared that the fight she lost in 2015 had reduced the future available to her daughter. Watching Grace collect her certificate did not erase those years. It answered them. After the ceremony, Grace found her mother beside the car. You hid it here. Today is not about vehicle. You know people would have liked pictures. They can take pictures of the graduate. Grace placed the certificate in Ese's hands. This one is also yours. Ese shook her head. No, I supported you. You earned it. Grace's smile trembled. Then hold what I earned. Ese did. At Adebayo Mobility, the consequences continued without dramatic music. The recall took 11 weeks. Of the 73 identified vehicles, 69 were inspected within the first 14 days. 4 owners had traveled outside Lagos and required coordinated transport. 12 hoses failed laboratory threshold testing, even though they had not yet burst. Every affected assembly was replaced. Owners received independent inspection certificates and written explanations. The company published weekly numbers as promised. Some customers left permanently. 2 fleet contracts were cancelled. The next financing round was delayed. The share value of a private investment vehicle connected to the company fell sharply. 800 employees did not lose their jobs. But senior management bonuses were suspended, and several procurement officers were placed under review. The Independent Safety Committee rejected one planned delivery because documentation was incomplete. Before the scandal, such a rejection would have angered Seyi. This time, he signed the delay order. His operational authority remained restricted. The board required him to complete a governance review, separate product safety from launch marketing, and accept independent oversight for 2 years. He gave up his annual performance bonus and part of his voting control over procurement matters. Some people online called his public admission a brilliant image repair strategy. Others called it genuine growth. Ese did not waste time deciding which label was perfect. A person's change was not proven by one speech. It was proven by what happened when the cameras left. Seyi visited Second Gear without a media team on a hot Thursday afternoon. He arrived in a plain company vehicle and waited outside until Ese finished a class. She found him studying the old catering van earth cable mounted on the wall as a teaching example. You kept that thing? He asked. It caused a breakdown because people ignored a small warning. I see why you like it. I do not like broken parts. I like what they teach. Seyi nodded. He had come to deliver the first public progress report from the External Safety Committee. Ese read it, standing beside the workbench. 12 corrective actions had been completed. 4 remained open. 1 employee retaliation complaint was still under investigation. "This section is vague," she said, tapping the page. Seyi looked at it. "Which section?" "Protection for contract workers. Your policy covers permanent employees, but the technician at the launch was still on probation. Contractors and probation staff are easier to threaten. We can amend it. Do not say can. Say whether you will." He looked at her. "We will. Put a date." Seyi removed a pen and wrote a proposed deadline beside the item. Ese handed the report back. Only then did he say what had brought him personally. "I owe you an apology that is not tied to a press conference." "You already apologized." "I apologized after evidence cornered me." "That is true." Seyi accepted the blow. "I have been thinking about the moment I threw the key." Ese folded her arms. "I was not only mocking your income, I was using the crowd to reduce you. I made your dignity depend on whether you could entertain us." "Yes." "I am sorry." Ese looked through the open workshop door. 2 trainees were checking tire dates on a minibus. Grace's brake rig stood near the classroom wall, deally arranged manuals in the distance. "I accept that you have said it honestly," she replied. Seyi waited. It was not the same as hearing. "I forgive everything," he understood. "Will you ever forgive me?" he asked. Ese considered the question. "Forgiveness is not a receipt I print for you after payment." He almost smiled. She continued. "I am not carrying hatred every morning. It is too heavy, and I have work. But forgiveness does not mean returning the keys of accountability." "I understand. Continue to understand." He left the center without asking for a photograph. Victor's case moved more slowly. Investigators reviewed procurement records, bank transfers, inspection certificates, and messages recovered from company devices. He was charged with offenses connected to procurement fraud, false documentation, and financial misconduct. The court released him on bail under conditions, while the case continued. No judge sentenced him in a single dramatic afternoon. No mysterious power seized all his property overnight. The law moved through filings, adjournments, witness interviews, and arguments. It was slower than public anger. But he no longer controlled the records. The technician withdrew his false statement formally and entered a protected witness process. Several former employees came forward with evidence of retaliation. The consulting payments were frozen pending the court's decision. Victor's professional memberships opened disciplinary reviews. For a man who had spent years deciding whose voice entered a file, the deepest consequence was simple. Other people were now recording him. The independent review of the 2016 crash did not give Ese the clean answer she had once begged for. The original brake assembly had not been preserved. The vehicle data was incomplete. Investigators could not state with certainty that a defective hose caused the collision. They did establish that the company's original investigation was inadequate. The brake components had been removed before independent examination. The speed conclusion relied on an estimate that failed to account for the road surface. The finding of driver error was therefore unsupported. The company withdrew the blame placed on Ese's husband. It issued a formal correction to his employment record. When Ese received the letter, she read it alone first. Then she gave it to Grace. Grace sat at the workshop table and cried without hiding her face. "So Daddy's name is clear. It says they had no proper basis to blame him. That means he did not cause it. It means they cannot honestly say he did." Grace pressed the paper to her chest. For her, that was enough to begin healing. For Ese, it was not an ending. It was the return of something stolen. On the first anniversary of Second Gear's opening, Ese placed 2 vehicles at the entrance. The white Apex R9 stood on one side. Her old grey service van stood on the other, scratched, repaired, and still carrying the dent from a market gate that had closed too early 5 years before. Visitors wanted photographs beside the luxury car. Ese directed every trainee to inspect the old van first. "Why?" one young man asked. "The other car is the important one." Ese handed him a tire gauge. "Important according to who?" "The R9 costs more. Price is not the same as value." He looked confused. Ese pointed at the service van. "That van carried tools when I had no workshop. It took stranded drivers home. It paid school fees in pieces. It taught my daughter to listen to machines. The R9 became part of our story for one day. This one carried us through years." The young man nodded. He began checking the old van's tires. Later that afternoon, a new group gathered in the classroom. Ese stood in front of them with the silver key resting on the table. A trainee raised her hand. "Ma, how did you feel when you finally won the car?" Ese looked at the key. The room waited for a triumphant answer. She could have described the applause. Victor's face. Seyi placing the key in her hand. The white paint shining beneath the lights. Instead, she remembered the letter clearing her husband's record. She remembered Grace holding her graduation certificate. She remembered Deal telling a class that silence could protect danger. She remembered a probationary technician learning that his job should never depend on signing a lie. "The car was expensive," Ese said, "but the truth they returned to my name was worth more." She placed the key beside the failed hose display. Do not misunderstand this story. Skill does not make a poor person worthy of dignity. Winning does not make a poor person worthy of dignity. Saving a billionaire's company does not make a poor person worthy of dignity. Her voice remained calm. A human being deserves respect before proving anything. Outside, Lagos moved with its usual impatience. Horns called from the road. A generator started 2 buildings away. Rain clouds gathered above the warehouse roof. Ese walked to the open door and watched her students working in pairs. Some would become technicians. Some would drive buses. Some would return home only knowing how to ask better questions when a warning appeared on their dashboard. That was enough. From my own point of view, the cruelest thing Seyi did was not throwing the key at Ese's feet. It was believing that poverty had erased her intelligence. Clothes may show what a person can afford, but they can never tell us what that person has survived, studied, or mastered. And there is another lesson that deserves to remain after the applause has ended. We should not wait for a poor person to save a life, expose corruption, or prove extraordinary talent before treating that person as fully human. Respect should not be a prize awarded after performance. It should be the first thing we give.